So Game of Thrones is finished. I had a whole intro planned out for this. I was even part way through doing my own version of the theme song, which I couldn't even be bothered to finish in the end. Finished? I can't even speak properly. I was originally planning to have this out as soon as it had ended. As I said, I was a little underwhelmed, and I thought, okay, well, I'll let the dust settle. Drink it in. I remember seeing the final episode of The Sopranos, that final just cut to black scene at the end, and first of all I was pissed off, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm just being a bit harsh on this. So I've had a couple of days to dwell on it now, to think on it, and I'm still pretty underwhelmed. There were definitely great things in the show. I'm going to be concentrating a lot on the actual finale itself, but I will be covering a lot of the things that happened in season 8 of, without a doubt, one of my favourite shows ever. There aren't many shows that I've watched from beginning to end all the way through. I normally either lose interest in them having to wait, or I wait until the show is completely finished and then binge it. But this one, I watched season 1 as soon as it came out, and I've watched every other season since. Just like a lot of you guys, I've been totally enraptured by it. And I remember seeing season 1 and thinking, how are they ever going to end this? I just remember that great opening where they introduced the White Walkers, this imminent threat who continue throughout the entirety of the show. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out before I get into it. Pretty much all my criticisms, like most people, is aimed squarely at the writing. Season 7 seemed a bit rushed, but I did enjoy a lot of season 7, and I did enjoy a lot of season 8, so I'm not trying to say I didn't, because it's still Game of Thrones. The production values of the show were still fantastic. The show looked great. All the actors were giving it their all, as they always do. They can only work with the scripts they're given. From what I understand, the two main writers of the show, I haven't even bothered looking up their names because they pissed me off so much. From what I understand, they were offered to write a Star Wars trilogy, which is understandably a fantastic offer. Who wouldn't want to do that? However, what that meant was that they wanted to wrap up Game of Thrones as quickly as possible. I think this is how it happened. This is how I understand it. HBO, obviously, this was a huge show, one of the biggest shows on the planet, had no intention of cancelling the show, so it was squarely down to the writers who wanted to bring this to a crushing halt. Let's get into it. Where do I start? I've made some vague notes here. This is going to be a bit all over the place. You're just going to have to bear with me here. Bran the Useless. He's the king. Spoilers. They have their council at the end, and a bunch of them sit together and go, so who's going to be king then? I don't know. Who's going to be king? I don't know, really. How about this mopey cunt? Yeah, as good as any, I suppose. So, Bran, who, let's be honest, has done fuck all. The entirety of this show, there's been this build-up of his visions, being the three-eyed raven. I can't see any way he's helped. He just sits there knowing shit. So, do you want to be king? Why do you think I came? Cheeky fucker. I remember years ago there was this theory that Bran was actually the Night King, because there was a striking similarity in the way they looked. There was obviously the bond that both of them shared. Maybe there's this sort of time sort of thing. Maybe that actually, after all, he became the Night King, and therefore it would go back through history and shit or whatever and start all the war off, and he'd be responsible. No. He's just the king now. Queen Cersei. Lena Headey, is that her name? I mean, again, fantastic performances throughout. She's delivered throughout the entirety of the show. Nothing against the actress at all. She's only working with what she's given. She pretty much spends the entirety of season 8 looking out of a window going, oh, what, the dragon bitch is coming? Bring it. Before we end Cersei, let's just skip over to Jaime Lannister. Fantastic character. Truly hateable character in the first couple of seasons. Obviously pushing Bran out the window and causing a great deal of the shit that happened in the first place. Over the course of 8 seasons, he's gone through one hell of a character arc. Almost become a sympathetic character. Of course, there's been memorable scenes of him with his brother Tyrion. There's of course been the double act of him and Brienne of Tarth. So after the Battle of Winterfell, we'll get onto that later, he bones Brienne, and then he's all like, don't smother me, babe, you know what I was like, yeah? And he swans off back to Queen Cersei, his sister, and they both get back together. They're all unified and that, and at this point Cersei just starts crying and says she doesn't want to die, and then they get crushed by a wall. So that's them out, that's them done. I think what bugs me is that I know at some point I'm going to go back to season 1, because there's so many fantastic episodes, and I'll probably watch it all again, to be honest with you. And I'm going to have to watch it knowing that this badass bitch, who we all thought could potentially take the Iron Throne, just dies crying by a wall. Jon Snow, let's talk about him. You know not! The potential king. That storyline went nowhere. Of course, he died. Was it season 5? Came back. Not sure that really had much relevance on anything. Does he become the king? Does he become the rightful ruler? I don't want to. Yep, so he's out then. He don't bother. Daenerys, another one of the favourites in the show. Of course, season 1, her character was absolutely fantastic. How she went from the beaten down and abused sister of that prick and started to blossom, started to bloom. You could see the, was it season 1 ending with the dragons hatching, and we all knew shit was going to get real. And she basically becomes the complete villain of the piece. She went all mental and shit. She went, yeah, you're all dying, fuck you. Right at the end, just as she's approaching the Iron Throne, Jon Snow, you know not, ends up killing her, which was a bit sad, really, to be fair. But yeah, so Daenerys is out, Cersei's out, Jon Snow, who you don't want to know, he ends up in prison now, pretty much moped for the rest of it. The bold bloke who had his knob cut off, he ended up getting burnt by a dragon a couple of episodes back. He was actually quite a good character, and like Tyrion, who we'll get into in a minute, his character had kind of become a bit on the sidelines over the last couple of seasons. He did get a couple of good moments this season, then finally got burnt alive by a Drogon, is it? Very imaginatively titled dragon, but at least he got a decent death. Yeah, betrayed by Tyrion. As I just mentioned, Tyrion, without a shadow of a doubt, one of my favourite characters from seasons pretty much 1 to 5, I guess. And he's kind of tailed off a bit, kind of become a bit just kind of limp. He had a few redeeming scenes in season 8, although that whole bit with him just suddenly out of nowhere, even though he's a prisoner, just elects Bran to be king, and everyone goes, yeah, right. Battle of Winterfell, let's talk about it. There were a few bits in that episode that annoyed me. First of all, why didn't the dragons do more? I know they were dealing with the Night King with his undead version of the dragon, but still, considering that the undead's absolute weakness was fire, a couple of laps with the dragons could have taken out a good deal of them, but no, they just fucked off. Then at the end, the Night King gets done in by Arya. He's a fantastic character, nothing against Arya. Her character's been pretty much awesome throughout. But yeah, it was just kind of a bit of a letdown, really. It's like, okay, these are the badass villains that we've been building up to the entire thing. What was it, episode 3 or 4? I can't remember. It was pretty much over. That's them done. That's them dealt with. Piss off, mate. Night King's gone. Again, he comes for Bran, not quite sure what that was about. They just sort of looked at each other, Bran doing what he does. Gonna do anything? No, mate. I didn't think so. I know. Brilliant. While we're on the subject of Arya, great character, and the double act that she had with the Hound was fantastic. Some of my favourite moments in the show was when them two were together. Such a great double act they were, and of course that brings me on to the Hound. There was never a bad scene with him in my opinion. He actually at least got a decent send-off. Finally had the showdown with his brother, the Mountain, and went out in style. I was happy to see that. That was good. I enjoyed that. Davos, I always liked Davos. I thought he was a great character. And Tormund, redhead Viking motherfucker. Awesome. Great character, really enjoyed him. Brienne of Tarth, kept it real right till the end. Decent enough character. I don't know if I'd say I'd like her or not. I mean, I didn't dislike Brienne. Grey Worm, ugh. God, he just annoyed me towards the end. His sulky look the entire fucking time. Ugh. Annoying. I've been going on a bit now, I've probably left loads out, but I might as well try and land this shitty plane. So they win the Battle of Winterfell. They get rid of the undead. Daenerys goes apeshit, kills every motherfucker. Cersei gets dealt with, so she's out. Daenerys gets done in by Jon Snow, who gets... As I'm going through it in my head, the more I think about it, the more it's just shockingly poor. Jon Snow betrays Daenerys, kills her, she's out of it, but then he gets imprisoned along with Tyrion, and Tyrion gets called up by the council with miserable Grey Worm, and he just says, yeah, make Bran king. And it's like, yeah, alright, you're the hand now, by the way, so you're alright. Jon gets let out, everything's alright. The Unsullied and the Dothraki, who are completely devoted to Daenerys, they're fine now. Yes, all right. Oh, Bronze King, is he? Bran's King, that's good. All right, yeah, we'll leave it then. Don't worry about it, let them all go. Sansa becomes Queen of the North, Arya goes west, and Jon Snow, you know not, he heads back north to the, to the Wall. And he leads a bunch of the wildlings out, and this is where it got me, because I get it. I did like the fact that the show ended with a reflection of how it begun. Of course, as I said earlier, the season 1, episode 1 began with them discovering the White Walkers, the enemy that we would have to face for the remaining seasons, for the remainder of the show. And then it ends with Jon Snow and the wildlings going back out into the north. And of course we now know that it's free of White Walkers. The enemy has been cleansed, has been purged. I get that. But I think all of us were just waiting for that twist ending as they walk off into the woods. That's basically how it ended. Basically, just went for a bit of a walk, like I'm doing now. This is the end to Game of Thrones, basically what I'm doing now. And they walk off, and I think, oh, it's not going to end now, is it? And then it cuts to another angle. I thought, oh no, that's all right, cool. There's still going to be another season. I checked the time. Still another 2 minutes left. Cool. All right, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a sudden reveal that Bran is actually the Night King? Daenerys, who got whisked away by a dragon, maybe she wasn't dead after all. Maybe this ain't over. Shit's about to get real. No. It ended. It just stopped. Credits. 8 years. Fuck those two dipshit writers. I've gone through a lot in my life since the beginning of that show. That's all I could think about, how much has changed. And I genuinely, I remember watching the first season and wondering how it was going to end all those years later. So I knew at the time that I was going to have to wait years to find out how this ended. There's a part of me that wants to give it a pass. You know what I mean? There's a part of me that wants to say, well, you know, it does kind of make sense as an ending, really. How else could it end? It ended and then everything carries on. As is the way of the world. Sometimes there's a bunch of shit things that happened. It gets dealt with. A bunch of people are left fucked over, and then you just kind of pick up the pieces and you go from there. So, you know, maybe it does work from that perspective, but you know what I'm saying. I'm actually quite tired now talking about this. That's it, it's done.